The I'm Thankful Network, radio for inspiration, education, and collaboration. Show host and creator Sue Lundquist has the endless energy, compassion, and charisma to carry her mission. This mission of positive change and communication, while also creating a maintenance tool within a safe environment. Sue Lundquist and the other positive changing hosts for living a life of contribution. Weekly Monday through Friday, 9 to 10, or streaming live at I'mThankful.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to East Shell Wisdom Radio with Shauna Home on the I'm Thankful Network. We are going to talk today. We have my wonderful guest who I bring on once a month, Dr. Gerstmar, who is a naturopath here in Redmond. And he is always a tremendous wealth of information. And so I asked Dr. Gerstmar if we could do a piece on menopause. And of course, he's so well researched that this is probably going to really be like a two-part show. And I really want to discuss this because menopause is really being looked at almost like a disease these days. And Western medicine has seized every opportunity to make as much money as they possibly can off of us. And and there's a lot to it because it's also a really important staging for us as women coming into elderhood, and in a society that worships youth, and really we have a nation of children on so many levels. It's not a welcome phase for a lot of women. And I'm about to be 48, and I'm, coming into that in a big way. And I'm so grateful for everything that I have been exploring and the path that I'm on, because I see it as a truly amazing staging. And so anyway, we're gonna talk about a lot of a number of levels in addition to, of course, the health piece and the importance of keeping your hormones healthy and all of that. So first of all, welcome, Dr. Gerstmar.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So let's start.
Sure. So, we want to kind of, in the way that we do, we want to cover this in a holistic perspective. I mean, we don't want to just talk about, we are going to talk about hormones and hormone replacement and bioidentical hormone replacement, and they're kind of really big topics. And, lots of women have heard about Suzanne Summers, who's out there banging the drum about bioidentical hormones, and they're the fountain of youth. And there's lots of anti-aging medicine. That's kind of a big trendy thing right now. So we'll touch on that, but let's get around this issue a little bit more. And I really want to start with what you were talking about. The stages of life, I mean, we can kind of break it down into, first we're an infant, then we become a child, then a teen.
Well, adolescence.
Right. Teen,
which I've
adolescence,
heard
right?
Adolescence and menopause are very similar in terms of that really intense changes in the body.
Sure. I mean, you can think about it. The three biggest changes, obviously, are from an infant to a child. Mm-hmm. Then from a child to an adult, that would be through adolescence or teenager. Mm-hmm. And then we're an adult, and then we become an elder, essentially. Mm-hmm. So we can break it down, if we just want to simplify, into three phases. We're a child, we're an adult, and we're an elder, and then we have the transitional phases moving through those primary three.
Right.
We think about it as a child, our prime duty is growing, learning. Mm-hmm. As an adult, our kind of prime duty is doing. I mean, that's where we accomplish the lion's share of what we do in the world. And obviously, if we choose to have children, that's the phase that we do it in. And then elderhood is more about being, right? Mm-hmm. Less about doing, more about being, more about the wisdom that we've accumulated in this life and sharing it, and that's kind of the primary role. So we have these different stages and transitions, and of course, puberty is the transition from a child to an adult. Mm-hmm. And then menopause, and also andropause, a little less dramatic for men, of course, transition between being an adult and an elder. Mm-hmm. So with that kind of framework in place, we have to understand in our society, we obviously don't value elders. We sort of stick them away in retirement homes or retirement communities where they can kind of all congregate together, and we don't value becoming older. I mean, we look at other societies, Japan is a lot in the news right now, but we look at kind of the Asian cultures in general, and there is a bigger reverence for the elderly, for the accumulated wisdom and understanding that they have and the value and the place they have in society. And that's almost completely missing, at least in American Western
That's right,
culture.
because it's youth obsessed. And in Native American cultures and other indigenous cultures, you would have councils of elders. You would have the grandmothers and the grandfathers. And
Right.
They were highly respected.
Right. So, when we start to come to the place where we look at that people fear aging, they fear the transition. Everybody sort of wants to be an adult as fast as possible. And we talk about how childhood is shrinking down and everyone's in the rush to move into that active doing phase of adulthood. And no one wants to not no one, but there's this fear of that transition over into elderhood.
Panic. I would say panic.
Well,
a lot of people.
For a lot of people, sure. And I think that comes about because of a couple of values that we have. And those are the desire for beauty, right? And no one wants to age. Everyone wants, just take a look at the commercials on TV. Anti-aging in so many different ways. Look younger.
It's everywhere. It's
that.
all over the media. Every
Right.
single magazine, every print ad, TV, everything.
Right. So people fear wrinkles. I mean, we spend millions and I don't have a number, maybe billions of dollars every year on between Botox and facelifts
Right.
and wrinkle creams and on and on and on and on and on. And looking at beauty is a fascinating thing because all throughout the world, pretty much everything is different. In one culture, being thin is beautiful. That's our culture. In another culture, being fat is beautiful. In one culture, having a long neck is beautiful, and long hair and short hair, and big eyes and small eyes, and on and on and on. And through it all of humanity, all over the globe, we sort of find two things that signify beauty for people cross-culturally. The first is a healthy appearance. So not looking diseased
Right.
is universally considered beautiful. And the second, and where this ties in, is a youthful appearance is universally considered beautiful. So it's understandable that people don't want to lose their youthful appearance.
Right.
So we have this idea of beauty and the fact that people don't want to lose beauty and that elderhood is perceived as ugly. Having wrinkles, having gray hair, having thinning hair, having no hair is considered ugly. And people clearly don't want that. So that's one of the things working against people making a peaceful transition into elderhood is this ideal of beauty that we have in our culture. And the second that we've touched on is the idea that worth comes from being productive. Sort of that Puritan ethic that our society, that the United States at least, was founded on, that, idle hands are the devil's hands, and they're evil, and they're sinful, and they're bad, and you must work and produce, or you're a lazy bum, and you're not worthwhile. And we see this most strongly in men, although we see it in women too, where their job is their identity.
Right.
And when they retire, they have no identity and they go downhill quickly and they die. They're worthless, useless individuals. But we see that in women too. We see people don't want to slow down.
Well, right. They don't want to slow down. And also for women, it's the fear of losing your desirability altogether. And spinsterhood, all this stuff that's really been passed down over the centuries, that's really been ingrained in the collective.
Do you want to speak any more to that?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think the church really started this too with all the witch burnings because the first women that it went after were the crones. And of course, they went after the crones first because they had all the wisdom. They knew the herbs. They could assist in childbirth. They had potions and all sorts of magic and access to realms that people would want to know about, and so they had to be eliminated. So there was a huge propaganda campaign in the form of these women are witches and they're dangerous and this and that. And eventually, after there are 5 centuries of witch burning, the older woman learned through that it's best to just stay silent. Stay silent and kind of stay in the background. So all these ideas of in the collective, I think of the elderhood not being something, worthy of respect and something you would look forward to is a result of ideas that have been ingrained for centuries. And then this culture now is just so immature. So...
Well, you speak on some issues there I don't know, so it's good to have your point of view on that. But, looking at these underlying issues of beauty and productivity and the fear of slowing down, we see people saying, well, I want my high-powered job. I want all of my activities. I don't want to slow down. And it's this, how can I force myself to stay in this adult doing productive time and not transitioning into this, the more of the elder, the being.
Right, which also
time.
does a disservice to the physical body. Because if you're not slowing down, as I know, it's going to make menopause really difficult.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the big pieces we're going to touch on. But the last kind of value, the last piece is people look around and they see aging and they see suffering, they see disease, they see infirmity, they see debility, they see all of that, and they think, I don't want that, understandably, right? But the vision of aging that we have in this society isn't how it has to be.
It never used to be this.
Well, we know when you're 60, you're not 20.
Right.
You can't run around and do everything you did when you're 20, but you also don't have to have 2 hip replacements and barely be able to walk and have...
And be on 6 different medications.
Right.
And
right.
Exactly.
So, people rightly fear aging that they see in this society. But when we look outside to other societies, we see that aging doesn't have to look like that.
No, there are other cultures that are also so vital. Their elderly, I always say, could outwalk you and me. I mean, it's really something. We will be right back. You are listening to eShell Wisdom Radio with Shauna Home on the I'm Thankful Network and my guest, Dr. Gerstmar. My family has had cats for years, and every so often, the inevitable happens and one of them has an accident on the carpet. We all know how difficult it is to get rid of cat urine odors, but I have found the best product out there, Kids and Pets Stain and Odor Remover. Kids and Pets gets rid of urine odors permanently. It makes stains disappear, and it even works on the mattress if your child wets the bed. And what I love about Kids and Pets is that it's made entirely of enzymes, which means it's safe and non-toxic, no harmful chemicals, and it's a cruelty-free product. You can use Kids and Pets on carpets, fabric car seats, furniture, and your clothing. In fact, I was able to remove blue food coloring from a cotton blazer I thought I'd never wear again. Kids and Pets removed it easily. I am so glad I found this product because I am very careful about not bringing toxic chemical cleaners into my home. So try Kids and Pets for yourself. You will be thrilled. And look for them on Facebook. Dr. Tim Gerstmar, ND, of Aspire Natural Health in downtown Redmond, is not your average naturopathic doctor. Dr. Gerstmar provides his patients with competent and compassionate health care, which emphasizes disease prevention and high-level wellness. Restoration of health and balance is the goal in Dr. Gerstmar's practice. Patients receive a level of personal attention at each appointment that is unheard of in today's medical practices. Initial appointments run for 90 minutes, enabling Dr. Gerstmar to treat the whole patient, body, mind, and spirit. Schooled in the knowledge of real food and its healing effects on the body, Dr. Gerstmar endeavors to discover the cause of what's ailing his patients and correct the imbalance, incorporating healing foods, in addition to blending traditional healing techniques along with the latest diagnostics and treatments of modern medicine. Check out his website, aspirenaturalhealth.com, or call for an appointment at 425-202-7849. Hi, I'm Shauna Home, host of eShell Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network, Wednesdays live from 9 till 10 a.m. My book, eShell Wisdom, 7 Teachings from the Mayan Sacred Feminine, is a love letter to women. Ixchel is the Mayan cosmic mother, and her messages in this book encourage women to open to their true beauty through simple rituals of self-love and self-care. Wise woman author Susan Weed says of this book, quote, "If you dare to read it, you will be swept up in an astonishing inner adventure that will empower you deeply. The words of the grandmother's song echo in Shauna's words," end quote. This is a beautiful book to gift yourself and the women you love. It's available on Amazon.com and my website, www.shaunahome.com. SHONAGHHOME.com. All right, so wait a minute. We're not talking about cougars on this show, Benny. Hey, stop. You're listening to Eashell Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network with Shauna Home, and we are talking today about menopause with Dr. Gerstmar. And this might be a two-part show. We'll see. There's a lot to discuss here.
Absolutely. Whoop. Sorry about that. My fault.
Thank you.
I was so hot and bothered, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Now do you get the hot stuff reference?
I do. Yeah, okay.
Hot flashes.
I know, and we'll get to hot flashes because I have a few things to say about those also. We were just starting the show just discussing, the almost panic that women feel at the idea of coming into elderhood and doing everything they possibly can to avoid that, and also just people's just inability in general to slow down and come into those natural cycles.
Absolutely. I mean, we're putting this in perspective here. I mean, like I said, we could just talk about hormones, but we want to place it in perspective and the fear of aging. And a big piece of menopause, effectively aging well and going through menopause, is the mental, emotional, spiritual acceptance of the change of cycle.
Right. For
people, that you are moving, just like, being an adult should be different from being a child, and being an elder should be different. One would hope so. Being an elder is different than being an adult. And, cycles happen whether we want them to or not. And in our, this is a topic for another show, maybe, a big piece of what we've done with modern society is avoid cycles in every way, shape, or form that we can.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, aging is cast out, and death is cast out.
Well, sure. And birth is largely cast out of
given to the
regular
institution.
society.
Right.
Many people never see a birth until their spouse or has a child or so we don't like cycles very much, but ultimately we are part of the natural world and we can't get away from them. And we can ride those cycles. And we could talk about how, I think a good piece of issues that women have with cycles, now it's a complex subject, but at least from a mental, emotional perspective, is not honoring and riding with the cycles. And so we see lots of, period-related problems, heavy periods, painful periods, all the rest. Mm-hmm. Topic for another show.
Right.
But a big piece of aging successfully is honoring cycles. When you're 50, you're not 15. When you're 60, you're not 30.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're wrong.
But you're not going to have the body of a 22-year-old when you're 50.
Right.
And if you try too hard, you might really hurt yourself in the process.
Well, it doesn't work. Right. I mean, we've all seen some of the movie stars who've done tons and tons and tons of plastic surgery. And do they really look 22?
No, some of them are horrifying looking. I mean, really scary.
And we all want to be beautiful and handsome in whatever way we are. And there is attractiveness in aging.
No question. Absolutely.
But it's a different mindset. So can hammer that point into the floor. But listen, if you're unwilling to accept that transition, that change, if you're unwilling to change your lifestyle, menopause is going to be really, really, really hard for you.
Sure.
Because you can go down kicking and screaming, or you can accept how it is and move within that cycle and maximize that cycle. And again, aging occurs and changes occur, but aging doesn't have to be the horrific, degenerative thing that we see in this society.
Okay, well, so let's talk about some approaches to that.
Sure. And the last piece I want to, before we move into how we're treating menopause, we'll get off this subject, is the fact to understand that menopause doesn't even occur for some women in some cultures. Right? There's no word for it. There's no understanding of it. I had a preceptor, a medical student come and shadow me recently, and she's from India. And she said her mother called her and said, "Hey, I've been reading about this thing called menopause. Should I have had that?" Right? You know, we know in other cultures, menopause is simply, "Oh, I haven't had a period for quite a while now."
Right.
And that's it. But in our culture, you know, there's jokingly the 7 dwarves of menopause, if you haven't seen that before. Itchy, Bitchy.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Biatch.
Sweaty, bloaty, sleepy, forgetful, and psycho.
Okay.
The 7 dwarves of menopause, as the joke goes. Or I've seen other places, people have cataloged the 35 symptoms of menopause.
Okay, so that's depressing. So let's move on.
Well, no, but it's important to understand that again, in the same way that we view aging as this horrific decline, women see menopause as this horrible 35 symptom, you know, terrible time.
Yeah, they
and
do.
We know from looking at other cultures that it doesn't have to be really any of those things.
Right.
So how do we deal with it?
Right.
Right. So let's talk about treatment. So in the conventional world, you have a couple of options. You have hormone replacement, which we hopefully all know was a huge thing until a few years ago when some big trials came out showing that all of the supposed benefits of using the hormone replacement, the reduced risk of heart disease and and cancer, excuse me, I lost my train of thought there, that were supposedly reduced were actually increased by the use of these hormones. Now, they worked very, very well for preventing hot flashes and some of the other symptoms of menopause, but they caused a lot of problems. And why? Well, because they're not bioidentical. And what does that mean? So the biggest source of conventional estrogen, Premarin, that word is abbreviation of pregnant mare's urine.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right. So it was sourced from horses, which, everyone freaks out about. But let's calm down for a second. Armour, the alternative world's darling of thyroid hormone replacement, comes from pigs. And if anybody out there does glandulars, those usually come from sheep or cows or pigs, right? So before we freak out, let's put it in context. We use animal medicines therapeutically, both in the conventional and more in the alternative world. But the issue is these estrogens don't look like people estrogens, right?
And they're being put into the body.
Right. So the issue is that we have estrogen receptors, these little signals that the body receives. So estrogen comes and docks in the estrogen receptor, which then causes all of the things that estrogen does for the body. Well, these horse estrogens don't quite bind right. And so they give some of the benefits of estrogen, but they have their own problems.
Right.
And then the progesterones that are given are really progestins, which are pharmaceutically created substances. But again, they don't look like real progesterone. Excuse me, we think a lot of the problems that we're seeing in these trials with the conventional hormone replacement actually came about because of these progestins. So, so that has led to a big part of the alternative world adopting what are called bioidentical hormones. And before I go there, let me just finish with the conventional treatments. So, the options are, if you're going through menopause and you're suffering, you can go and get hormone replacement. And now the conventional community has said the lowest dose for the shortest possible amount of time, trying to reduce these risks of cardiovascular disease and cancer to come out of using these hormones. Or you can get Prozac for, your mood swings and kind of everything else.
Right.
Or you sort of get nothing.
Right.
I mean, those are kind of most of the options that I see women getting nowadays if you just go to your MD, your gynecologist or endocrinologist or family doctor. So in the alternative world, bioidenticals have blown up and become this huge thing. I mean, if I wanted to make tons of money as a alternative doctor, all I have to do is put the big sign out with the flashing red light saying bioidentical hormones and anti-aging, and people line up for it.
Right.
Like I said, it's been made popular by Suzanne Summers, who's written a number of books and been on a crusade. And the benefit is these hormones are the exact same hormones that are in the human body.
Okay.
So they don't cause the side effects that the synthetic hormones cause.
Right.
What we don't know is truly what the long-term use of this does for people. Now, this is highly debated. There are bioidentical docs out there who are going to say, no, the studies that we have show that there's no increased risk. I tend to be a conservative doc in this regard. And so, we know hormones, the sex hormones, the estrogens, the progesterones, the testosterones are supposed to decline in later life.
Right.
And what are we doing when we're keeping those levels artificially elevated? I don't know the answer. There's a lot of gambling that, it's safe and there's no problem and that it's all benefit.
Yeah,
and
it's always safe until it's not anymore.
And the truth is we don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, they may be right and it may be perfectly safe and great and the best thing in the world, and that is possible. But if we're trying to honor the cycles of the body, and we're forcing out that cycle, we're saying, forget elderhood. We're just going to extend adulthood to the very end of life. I'm just naturally skeptical about that whole idea.
I am too. And I think that Mother Nature doesn't make mistakes and she knows what she's doing. And our body is part of nature. And, we don't have perpetual spring. We go from spring to summer to fall.
Right.
To
Well,
winter.
I mean, this is the difference. As a natural medicine practitioner and a natural medicine believer, we believe that, nature doesn't make mistakes and these natural cycles should be honored. And of course, that's not a view shared by our society, and that's not a view shared by the conventional system.
Right. That's right. And we will be right back. This is really good conversation here. You're listening to eShell Wisdom Radio on the I'm Thankful Network with Shauna Home and my guest, Dr. Gerstmar. We'll be right back.
Hey.
Do you or someone you know suffer from depression or menstrual discomfort and irregularities? Would you enjoy a less stressful lifestyle and a more harmonious sense of flow and transition through life's challenges? If you're ready to heal and answered yes to any of these questions, then now is the time to try acupuncture and herbal medicine. East Asian medicine practitioner and licensed acupuncturist Summer Nemery is an incredibly passionate and skilled healer, providing hands-on intuitive touch combined with the ancient wisdom of Chinese medicine. This powerful combination will not only treat your symptoms, but will directly focus on the root of your issue to stimulate your body's own healing intelligence. Call Summer today at 206-351-8580 to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if acupuncture can help you, or visit her website at sacredhealingnw.com for more information. If you're thinking of doing a cleanse to restore health to your digestive system and bring your body back to balance, you need to check out European Rejuvenation Center in Factoria. European Rejuvenation Center is the place to go for colon hydrotherapy, endermology, and Swedish massage. They offer the Libby system for colon hydrotherapy, which is more effective than regular colonics for removing unwanted waste from the gut and assisting your body to return itself to a state of balance. Endermology originated in France and works directly to help remove cellulite. Swedish massage promotes relaxation and well-being, stimulating blood flow to the muscles and throughout the body. Owner Selena Lewandowski is knowledgeable and compassionate. Selena will assist you in your goals to bring your body back to balance. Mention this ad and receive $20 off your first appointment. Call 206-271-0041 or check out their website, EuropeanRejuvenationCenter.com. If you are ready to change your life in a truly profound way, then I invite you to meet Elisa Silling, founder of Awake in Joy. Elisa is a gifted healing practitioner here in the Seattle area. She is a life coach, hypnotherapist, and spiritual guide. Elisa can induct you into your highest potential, helping you to overcome personal limitations, fears, anxiety, and stress. Working with Elisa, you will align with your life's purpose. Clients have experienced greater clarity and a sense of personal empowerment that has helped them create abundance on every level. Awaken Joy offers personal healing sessions, classes, and retreats. Sessions may be in person or by phone. Are you ready for a personal transformation? Check out Elisa's website, www.awakenjoy.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Ishel Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network. I'm your host, Shauna Home, and we are talking today to Dr. Gerstmar of AspireNaturalHealth.com, by the way. He is a naturopath in Redmond and one of my favorite people and so highly researched. And we're talking today about menopause. And I want to just plug a book that is like my menopause Bible, and it's by master herbalist Susun Weed, which is S-U-S-U-N Weed, and it's called New Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way. And throughout that book are herbal preparations that address every aspect of menopause. This book is fantastic, and the few women who I've given a copy to who I knew would actually make those preparations swear by it. It's really, really good book. And for really good herbs in the Seattle area, we're on the east side, I would highly recommend Urban Wellness in Kirkland, and that's owned by my friend Katya Defani, and they have a website, urbanwellness.com, and that's urban spelled very cleverly, Herban wellness.com. So so that's New Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way. You can get that on Amazon. And so let's get back to, we were just kind of talking about the difference between the synthetic hormones and then the bioidentical hormones, both of which were both, I mean, there's no way I would do synthetic. I don't do Western medicine anyway, but then bioidentical, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, we're gonna get into this, and I do use them, and they have their place. And obviously, if I'm going to choose hormones, hormone therapy for women, we want to use hormones that are the same as what are in our body, so that we get the same action that our natural hormones give to us, and we minimize any side effects that result from them. But the bottom line, and people are going to agree or disagree, but looking around the world, every time we ignore a natural cycle or process of nature, we generally get a short-term benefit from it when we do. And you can think about this, cutting down forests and damming rivers and anything we do that ignores a cycle of nature, we get a short-term benefit and a long-term negative, right? And often a lot of negatives that no one ever thought about at the time. That's my concern. That's my natural, I lost the word. That's my natural kind of conservatism on this issue of saying, let's ignore elderhood and let's just push adulthood out to the end of life.
Right. But elderhood is also a wisdom time. And I mean, elders were looked to for their wisdom. And so there's a maturity and a wisdom piece that one wants to come into as well.
Well, one of my mentors, he felt that childhood was about the physical growth and adulthood was about the mental and emotional growth, and that elderhood was about spiritual growth.
Right.
His viewpoint, his belief was that the use of of hormones, of extending adulthood, you stunted people's spiritual growth. That the biggest phase of spiritual growth in a person's life occurred during elderhood. So that was his viewpoint, and I believe in that viewpoint as well. That's my view. So,
absolutely. And I have to say that the women in my circles that I know who are in exploring spiritual realms and are gathering in circles and that type of thing, they're doing croning ceremonies where they're welcoming coming into the crone, and they're doing it for 50th birthday or 60th birthday, and they do this big croning ceremony.
I'm gonna have to say, if you want that to go big, you got to change that name.
I know, but yet crone is means crown and wisdom and anyway, there are a few women really kind of waking up to that and going, you know what, this is actually a really great thing. And I'm going to embrace it.
Right. So, let's talk treatment a little bit here, because I imagine people are thinking, well, okay, people who this resonates with are saying, well, that sounds good, but what are we supposed to do if we're not doing
right? And for
any hormone
taxed
therapies?
bodies that are highly adrenalized in this society.
Well, let's get into that point right now. So,
Okay.
What makes us men and women and this can be a complex thing, but on some level are our hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So we know women are primarily estrogen, progesterone driven with some testosterone. Men, not the topic of the show, primarily testosterone driven, with some estrogen and progesterone. When we're children, we essentially have minimal hormone levels. I mean, that's why a little boy and a little girl ultimately look very, very similar to one another. When we go into puberty, things change dramatically, and all of those hormone production really comes online. For women, those hormones are produced primarily and mostly by the ovaries. When we come to menopause, that other transition, we know that those ovaries begin to shut down. And that can be, we're seeing that can be a very chaotic process for women in this society. So what are women to do? Well, we know there is a secondary source of hormones for the body, and that is the adrenal glands, right? So the adrenal glands produce quite a lot of things: cortisol, aldosterone, which helps regulate our water balance, epinephrine or adrenaline for those fight or flight situations. But they also produce some sex hormones. They make testosterone, for instance, and DHEA. So they are the body's secondary source of hormones. Now, it's not if we think about it, can't show illustrations on the radio, not going to be the high levels of sex hormones that are produced by the ovaries themselves, but a lower stable level. And so what we're seeing in non-stressed or less stressed, healthy women from other cultures. Why is menopause not a big deal? Because as the ovarian production of sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, is declining, the adrenal production picks up and stabilizes. So if you think about a gentle downhill road that then levels out, right? So the ovaries turn off and the adrenals take over, and the woman now has a lower baseline of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone in her body, but has enough to keep her stable and well, and none of these crazy symptoms that we're touching on arise for them. But what do we see in our society? So people burn the candle at both ends, because remember, only being productive and doing is worthwhile in this society. Resting, taking it easy, relaxing, having fun, enjoying yourself. Waste of time, a bad person, essentially.
Americans are so crazy.
We are crazy. Why do we see that from what I can tell, menopause has not been such a big of an issue in Europe? Things are changing, but from what patients tell me is because traditionally there's more of a value on rest and relaxation, right? But in this society, we burn the candle at both ends. We just drive our adrenals into the ground. And, this is a topic of another show, but we see a lot of people in these stages of adrenal fatigue where they're in suboptimal cortisol levels, they're in suboptimal DHEA levels. Their adrenals just don't have it anymore. And so as their ovaries start to shut down their production, they have no safety net in place, right? So people go, instead of this gentle downhill roll that then stabilizes, they just go off a cliff, right? Estrogen, testosterone, progesterone levels just plummet. All of these symptoms then come to the fore. Hot flashes, right? Memory and mood problems. All these other symptoms, the 7 dwarfs or 35 symptoms of menopause, come to the fore because there's no adrenal function left. There's no safety net in their bodies. And so instead of those hormone levels stabilizing at a lower but stable and sufficient level, they just plummet into the floor. And women have nothing. Right. So, ideally, and this is one of the harder sells of my practice, is getting women a few years before they actually go into menopause, or right kind of at the beginning of perimenopause, that stage of where the ovaries are beginning that cycle of shutting down, to really come in and address it in a serious way, get their adrenals healthy, make some diet and lifestyle changes. And you know what? If they'll do that, menopause can be a relatively easy thing for them.
Right.
But many women don't. They come in right in the middle of it. You know, I have one woman immediately pops into the top of my head, suffering horrendously from menopausal symptoms, not being able to, getting just a few hours of sleep at night because hot flashes are such an issue, stumbling around kind of like a zombie, not being able to think. And so I did put her on bioidentical hormones. I mean, that's one where we need to get her, but my plan of action is to get her stabilized, rebuild her adrenal function, get everything else balanced and in place. And then, you know, my suggestion is to wean off the hormones.
Right. That sounds like a good approach.
So that is how I use bioidentical hormones.
Right.
It's for stabilizing people. And then with the idea of weaning off, because we know we don't have to be on these. But the place many people find themselves in, just burnt to a crisp, they need it for a period of time.
Right.
So, you know, I want to say again, one of the elders in my field I was talking with, and she was saying back when she began practice, treating menopause was really easy. Just a little bit of adrenal support, a little bit of kind of nervous system support, and some of these nourishing things like some of the teas you mentioned in Susan Weed's book. And that was all many women needed.
Right.
Now she's finding that there's a whole lot more that has to be done because, you know, what we do to ourselves living in our society.
Right, right. Okay. Well, we are going to come back in just a minute. We are here today with Dr. Gerstmar of AspireNaturalHealth.com here in Redmond, talking about menopause. This is so great. You're listening to Each Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network. We'll be right back. Dr. Tim Gerstmar, ND, of Aspire Natural Health in downtown Redmond, is not your average naturopathic doctor. Dr. Gerstmar provides his patients with competent and compassionate health care, which emphasizes disease prevention and high-level wellness. Restoration of health and balance is the goal in Dr. Gerstmar's practice. Patients receive a level of personal attention at each appointment that is unheard of in today's medical practices. Initial appointments run for 90 minutes, enabling Dr. Gerstmar to treat the whole patient, body, mind, and spirit. Schooled in the knowledge of real food and its healing effects on the body, Dr. Gerstmar endeavors to discover the cause of what's ailing his patients and correct the imbalance, incorporating healing foods, in addition to blending traditional healing techniques along with the latest diagnostics and treatments of modern medicine. Check out his website, AspireNaturalHealth.com, or call for an appointment at 425-202-7849. Hi, I'm Shauna Home, host of eShell Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network, Wednesdays live from 9 till 10 a.m. My book, eShell Wisdom, 7 Teachings from the Mayan Sacred Feminine, is a love letter to women. eShell is the Mayan cosmic mother, and her messages in this book encourage women to open to their true beauty through simple rituals of self-love and self-care. Wise woman author Susan Weed says of this book, quote, "If you dare to read it, you will be swept up in an astonishing inner adventure that will empower you deeply. The words of the grandmother's song echo in Shauna's words," end quote. This is a beautiful book to gift yourself and the women you love. It's available on Amazon.com and my website, www.shaunahome.com, ShonaghHome.com. My family has had cats for years, and every so often, the inevitable happens and one of them has an accident on the carpet. We all know how difficult it is to get rid of cat urine odors, but I have found the best product out there, Kids and Pets Stain and Odor Remover. Kids and Pets gets rid of urine odors permanently. It makes stains disappear, and it even works on the mattress if your child wets the bed. And what I love about Kids and Pets is that it's made entirely of enzymes, which means it's safe and non-toxic, no harmful chemicals, and it's a cruelty-free product. You can use Kids and Pets on carpets, fabric car seats, furniture, and your clothing. In fact, I was able to remove blue food coloring from a cotton blazer I thought I'd never wear again. Kids and Pets removed it easily. I am so glad I found this product because I am very careful about not bringing toxic chemical cleaners into my home. So try Kids and Pets for yourself. You will be thrilled. And look for them on Facebook.
Yeah, baby. Listen here, baby. Stop acting so crazy.
That's funny. Stop acting so crazy. That wouldn't be me. You're listening to Ishal Wisdom Radio on the I'm Thankful Network. I'm your host, Shauna Home. And we're here with Dr. Gerstmar of AspireNaturalHealth.com. Dr. Gerstmar is a naturopath in downtown Redmond. We're so lucky to have him. And we're talking today about menopause. And I want to talk a little bit about just the weight gain that happens as well, because we are getting into more of the alternative piece here.
Right. I mean, we've kind of laid down in this show that successfully transitioning menopause requires a mental, emotional shift and a change in values and understanding. Then we've talked about, we've at least touched on basically what I believe is the intelligent use of bioidentical hormones. It's to help through that transition piece. But ideally, in caring for oneself, you're preparing, at the kind of the first hint of perimenopausal symptoms, you sort of jump on it and get that self-care in place and get that good adrenal function in place so that you can make the transition and you have that safety net.
Right.
But let's talk about weight gain a little bit. So the nemesis of women, right, is the pounds you put on around menopause. But if we look at it and with a little understanding, we can see part of why it occurs. Now, there can be many reasons, and that's a bit outside of what we're going to talk about. But understanding that the adrenal glands primarily are producing testosterone, okay? And women really need estrogen, right? So that conversion is done by an enzyme called aromatase. It turns testosterone into estrogen. And that enzyme primarily occurs in fat cells. So, looked at in that perspective, a healthy and reasonable weight gain around menopause helps women ensure adequate estrogen.
And Susan Weed talks about that in her book,
right.
the menopause, what is it called? New Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way. She says it's actually the thin women who have a hell of a time.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you, clinically what I see is the very thin elderly women are suffering tremendously from symptoms of low estrogen. Women who are a little bit more, have a little extra weight on them. Now, we're not saying 50, 100 pounds. We're talking about, 5, 10 pounds typically, tend to do much, much better. They're not suffering from this dryness. I mean, if we just think about it kind of globally,
right.
What we're kind of seeing in menopause when estrogen plummets is everything dries out.
Right.
Right. So we want to keep kind of the juiciness and the plumpness of women and a little bit of extra weight gain, again, reasonable, 5 to 10 pounds typically, is a necessary piece. So instead of ovaries supplying your sex hormones, you're relying on your adrenals plus a little bit of extra fat to supply that safety net of hormones for you.
Okay.
Keep you sane and stable. So women who force off that 5 to 10 pounds, which is generally pretty hard to do, suffer for it.
Right.
They do. So it's, again, a little bit of change in mindset. Yes, you're not going to be super thin and
looking like a 25-year-old.
Right.
I know. We got a big paradigm to shift here, though, Dr. Gerstmar.
Well, this is going to resonate with some people, and others listening are going to go,
the hell with that.
The hell with that. I'm taking my bioidenticals. And listen, be safe about it. Be sane. More power to you if that's what works for you.
Sure.
You know, I recommend people who are going to be on bioidenticals have some sort of liver support in their system. Liver is primarily responsible for clearing those sex hormones out of the body, and then some extra methylation support in the way of B vitamins, which are necessary cofactors, and you know, minimize your risk. And again, maybe they're right, and maybe that's what we all should be doing, but you know, I do believe nature doesn't make mistakes, and that we need to abide by the natural cycles of life. So let's talk a little bit here as we move into the end of the show about how to have that healthy adrenal function.
Right.
So when it comes, you know, there's a lot of pieces, and there's lots of little bits and pieces to address different symptoms. And, you know, Susan Weed's book is a great way to start. There are a lot of other useful resources, or, you know, shameless plug, find a good practitioner who can help you with those.
Yeah.
But looking at kind of broad level things, you know, the single thing you can do to have a healthy menopause, a healthy transition, a healthy elderhood is to be healthy, but a piece of that is to have that healthy adrenal function, supplying those hormones for you, so you don't hit the floor, basically, when that happens. And so maintaining healthy adrenal function is not rocket science here. We understand the adrenals do many things, but there are fight or flight hormones. They respond to stress. And if there's one, you know, we talk a lot, or maybe we don't, on this show in particular, but I know you do, and I do in my practice about, you know, things like how the importance of food, and how the kind of low quality food in our society is one of the tremendous drivers of disease.
And all that sugar.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's
highly inflammatory.
There's lots of pieces to it. You know, the refined vegetable oils and the omega-6 essential fatty the skewing of the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, and high fructose corn syrup and sugars, and there's lots and lots of pieces to it. But I would have to say that I think that even more than that, it's the stress that we go through on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
You know, we look at other cultures, and, you know, their food choices may not be fantastic, but if they don't have the stress level that we have in our society, they suffer a lot less for their poor food choices, right? So it's compounding. It's many things, and it's not just these two. But I think the single biggest things are the unrelenting high stress levels we have in our society, combined with poor food choices, are driving this. And so that is, how is that relevant to adrenal function? Well, it's the stress keeps us in this fight or flight. I mean, our adrenals are made for, look, there's a tiger.
Right.
I have to run away from the tiger, and either you make it or you don't make it. But assuming you do make it, stress time is over. It's time to relax again.
Right.
We live in fear of this tiger every day, all the time. I mean, I don't know about you. I had to drive in traffic to get here. And despite your best efforts, it's pretty darn frustrating. You know, and that's triggering that adrenal function, and that's keeping these high stress levels. And
job security, economic,
absolutely,
all that, everything.
Yeah, when you open your bills at night, and on and on and on. So, you know, short of moving to a desert island, or rather a tropical desert island, right, where we get to lay in a hammock all day long and have our needs taken care of, we need to learn effective stress management. And so this is not sexy, but it's really important. And effective stress management is what works for you. I mean, we can talk about things like meditation and reframing and lots of these other techniques. People have to find what works for them. And so we sort of blow off stress. Yeah, it's just stress, right? No, actually, you know, we could do a whole show on, seriously, the tremendous negative repercussions of too much stress.
Well, we're seeing it in our culture.
Well, absolutely. You know, and we could add that one of those repercussions is a difficult menopause, right? So finding ways to reduce stress, and this is again a big topic, but reducing your commitments. This kind of goes back to the sense of the transition from adulthood into elderhood is a transition from doing into being.
Yeah. Yeah, meditation's huge, and things that we don't indulge in, like even bathing, long candlelit baths, and you have to like make an appointment, basically.
Well, really, whatever works for you, whatever helps you de-stress and move out of what we call the sympathetic fight or flight reaction. And so another big piece. So that's the first and maybe most important step.
Yeah, I think so too.
Is changing the mindset.
Yeah.
The second is sleep. And I could bang the drum all day long about sleep. Getting enough sleep.
Well, and then there are those of us who get awakened.
Right?
During menopause or perimenopause.
Well, and I mean this is that vicious cycle. But again, for all the women who are moving towards menopause and don't want it to be a horrific thing for them,
get to bed early.
Get to bed early and get enough sleep. And I know it's easier said than done, and there's no magic around it, but it is critical.
Okay, and as usual, the show time is melted by every single time.
Good Lord. Yeah, well, okay, so much for our last few things. But
well, we'll come back to this topic. I think this is a big topic anyway. And you're listening to Eashell Wisdom Radio on the I'm Thankful Network. We had my guest, Dr. Tim Gerstmar of Aspire Natural Health. Dr. Gerstmar, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, Sean. I hope this has been useful to people.
Oh, no question. And we'll talk about this more. Have a great day, everyone.